so
There
much.
you go.
Oh my, it can't all be serious, right?
That fabric, that's beautiful.
This one?
Thank you. Are you talking to me?
That's a really nice sweatshirt.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you were talking about my sweater?
Oh my goodness.
China,
Okay, all you,
Yeah, it's very like
I don't know.
velvet.
Just
Yeah.
like, it's just cloth to me. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, it's like a fleece.
Yeah.
It's a fleece.
It's kinda warm.
It's very nice. Yeah, really nice.
I gave you a break, now, be good.
I'm far enough away, you can't hit me anymore.
Oh, she can get up and kick.
Do you wanna
Trust me.
Do you want to
Trust,
switch places?
trust me.
Do you want to switch places?
Do you mind? No.
Apparently,
Distance is no guarantee, Mark.
You
I'm
have
just
to
gonna
save
say
it.
that.
Okay, I will.
You're so full of it.
It's a rowdy crowd tonight. It's my fault usually.
a rowdy crowd.
Sounds like people are friendly.
Yeah. Well, I want to start off by saying hi to the meditation group in Truro, Nova Scotia, and and thank you for tuning in and watching this. For some of you are new, and we stream this on YouTube. And I promised one of my students from Hunroar Shepherd and her meditation group in Truro. I think that's right. I'm pronouncing it right. Truro, Nova Scotia. And thank you for tuning in and watching. So being a part of this. So we have, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, about 18 people here, and there's some more coming in. I can see them parking right now. But thank you everybody for coming. I think we owe it to ourselves, to be here and to meditate and be a part of all this, and because Paul and I were just talking about how healing it is, and if it's, just the relief of stress alone is very healing. It's huge. And if we look back about why we suffer from any kind of health situations, from everything from the common cold to any kind of mental or physical disorder of any kind, usually it's related to stress. It's not so evident right away, but if we live a stressful life, it'll show. It shows in the body and the mind. So the more we can meditate, the more we can just look at that simple aspect of distressing, it really makes it worthwhile. Of course, there's a lot of other benefits too, and the clarity of mind and all these different aspects that we'll talk about in a moment here. But I'm kind of curious. It seems like maybe I can get an idea by looking around. Okay, I know there's a few people that are fairly new to meditation, and there's people that have been here for a long time, so I'll try to address both simultaneously almost. First of all, for you people that have been here for a long time, or been meditating for a long time, that I set out kind of an invitation for people to look at things, while they meditate, and sometimes it's effective, and sometimes the meditator goes, yeah, whatever, and just does their meditation, most likely anyway. But I wanted to talk a little bit about abiding in presence, or what some people might say, abiding in emptiness, and how we can use that in our meditation practice. And so for you people that are fairly new to meditation, you might have some questions about this, but I'll address other types of meditation practices in a moment here that are a little bit easier. But when we talk about abiding in awareness, it's a stillness of mind that is recognizable from awareness itself, but after the experience of the meditation. So it's kind of like sitting in our practice, just simply, just a huge amount of allowing, things to be, and being sensitive to the activity of the mind, not trying to change anything or stop anything or making anything better or worse or anything, but just allowing, complete allowing. And in that practice, with that practice of acceptance, the mind can have a tendency to just be completely open. It's like the fight is over, It's a little bit hard for a person to do that hasn't practiced very much, but it is very possible, to do for so many people that have been, meditating for a while. And it's not necessarily a concentration practice or like a jhana that we've talked about, before, these deep states of concentration, but it's more of an awareness and being aware. There is energy behind it, so think in terms of having energy and not being lethargic and watching what is happening. So the meditation object we're switching a little bit from a little different from watching the breath to watching the activity of the mind. And more so to watch our reactivity, to what the mind lands on. And so I'm calling it awareness. Some people might call it consciousness or presence or whatever we might kind of label we might want to put on it. But in essence, what we're doing is watching the activity of the mind in such a way that this awareness is watching the awareness that's coming from us in regards to the sense activity, and that includes thoughts, which is the hard part. So as a meditator, we might realize that we see something we don't like and there's a reaction to it. We react in a certain way, and it's things that we hear. We might notice that we react to things that we hear or smell or taste or touch or any of these things. But when we do it from the standpoint of meditating, our eyes are closed and we're this is going to be a very quiet room when everybody settles down and I stop talking, and sometimes it's almost like we don't have much to work with except for the mind. The thoughts come up, and to watch our reactivity to that. But again, we're not trying to change anything or judge anything, or just noticing. And it's almost like being an innocent bystander to the mind itself. But the key, again, the word allowing is huge. So I'll try to address that when I do the little guided meditation when we start our meditation practice. And maybe we can talk about that later too. But for the people that are fairly new to meditation, most likely we've heard about using the breath as a meditation object. And by all means, I certainly recommend that. And I wouldn't be surprised that once we start meditating here, almost everybody will be using the breath in some way. And so we're bringing our attention to the breath. We're feeling the breath on the body someplace, maybe the tip of the nose or something like that. And then when the thoughts or the attention decides to go elsewhere, we notice that, we catch that, and we bring it back to the breath. And that's like our foundation, that's our Rock of Gibraltar. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Gibraltar. Rock of Gibraltar. I don't even know where that's at. Where is the Rock of Gibraltar at? Africa?
North Africa.
North Africa.
Yes.
I'll remember that. It's probably huge, right? I don't know.
It's not just
Anyway.
a metaphor.
Anyway, that's our foundation, our rock. I used to call it the breath, kind of relate it to the flagpole in the schoolyard. You know, when I was a kid once, and when we would, after school, we'd say, "I'll meet you at the flagpole." And everybody knew where the flagpole was. You know, you could see it from everywhere. And then we would meet at the flagpole. And I always kind of felt like the breath is like coming back to the flagpole, because everybody, you get so used to it, and you get, you know. The only problem is it was in front of the principal's office, you know. So if you're meeting somebody you shouldn't be meeting, the principal would know it, and that's another story. But then I remember seeing the movie Twister, and they chained themselves to a pipe, and that reminded me of the flagpole too. And the Twister came and wrecked the farm and took everything away except for the guy and the girl that were handcuffed to the pipe or chained to the pipe, wrapped a chain around them or something, or rope, and the pipe saved them, like the flagpole could save us. In other words, the breath. Kind of get away from that. We keep coming back, you know, to the breath, and let the breath do the work. And as I often say, there's nothing, you know, sacred or religious about the breath. It's just an object that we use to settle in, still the mind. And then when we still the mind, a lot of people would refer to that is when the magic happens, because we get a chance to see the activity, you know, of the mind from that standpoint. And so both of these practices that I'm talking about are similar. You know, we're looking at the activity of the mind, and that is Vipassana. That's the basics of Vipassana, or insight meditation. And ideally, what we're hoping for is that the mind doesn't disturb our peace at all. You know, we're resting in this. Hopefully, it's tranquil. You know, for everybody that meditates. It doesn't have to be. It's not always like that. And we still learn something, you know, when our meditation isn't good. And actually, the bad meditations are probably the ones that we learn the most from, you know. But when we find that stillness, it is almost like a space in between the thoughts. And that's when things can arise for us in a very wonderful way, in the form of insight and knowing. And that's the clarity of mind that I mentioned a little while ago, one of the huge benefits of meditation, along with the health benefits that we've mentioned. So I will ring the bell here in a little bit, and I'll guide us through about the first 15 or 20 minutes of the practice. This is a little bit longer practice than a lot of people might do at home. Some of you practice for longer periods, but I think the majority of you probably practice for a little bit less. And the reason I say that is because when we get together in a group like this, we can really give ourselves the edge, or the opportunity to meditate a little bit longer because of the energy that's in the room with different people. It's like we shut out the entire world, and we come through these doors, and it's like walking into a yoga room where I'm going to do yoga. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to do yoga. But in this place, in this situation, it's meditation. We came here to meditate, and so we'll be meditating for about 40 minutes. So. It won't seem like it, probably, and for some of you it might seem like a couple hours too, but we'll be fine. You know, all I ask is that we remain fairly quiet for our neighbor's sake, and we'll sit in silence for a great deal, but like I said, I'll guide us through the first part of it. And if your phone is not off or on Do Not Disturb, you might want to take care of that. So please make yourself comfortable if you haven't done so already. Please bring your attention to the breath. And just see how the breath feels for a few moments. When we use the breath, we don't want to manipulate it or change it in any way. We're not trying to manipulate or change anything in meditation. So we talked about two different techniques. One of them is using the breath as a focal point, and the other one is using awareness itself as the meditation object. So if we're using awareness itself, we can notice our connection with the sounds that are out there, the sensations of the body, the feelings, how we relate to all of this, including the visualizations within the mind with the eyes closed, the thoughts and the feelings. And if we feel more comfortable doing so, we bring our attention to the breath and use that as our focal point or our meditation object. Meditation is deceptively easy. It's a very simple practice. And at times it can be difficult, and sometimes it can be very, very simple. But it always has something to teach us. So we can sit and feel very balanced in the body and centered in the mind. As if we are determined to have a good meditation, to really enjoy ourselves in this meditation experience. And then again, if we have expectations that aren't met, we can notice that our preferences get scrambled up a little bit, cause problems for us. And so meditation is a practice that it really doesn't have any preferences. But then again, it's not like as if we're trying to let go of the preferences. We're just using our awareness to notice this. We have a preference to stay with the mind, or stay with the breath, or to stay with the awareness, whatever we're using for our object. It won't always stay there, and we just gently bring it back. We might have a preference or a wish to reach some deep state of concentration or achieve some kind of a deep state of awareness. And that can happen, of course, but if it doesn't happen, we don't want that to affect us in any way whatsoever. In other words, meditation is the training ground for life itself. and it's a reflection of who we are. We meditate, we still the mind. We see activity of the mind that is more resembling of our true nature, who we truly are beyond the thoughts, the past, the future. And we can have thoughts come up regarding the past or the future, and we just accept that as it is. If we're using the breath, we just simply come back to the breath. And just be okay with that experience. If we notice thoughts or preferences of the past and future, and are using awareness as our meditation object, awareness itself, we just see it as if it's a reflection of who we are. Because it truly is awareness watching awareness, as long as we understand this, that this is not a dichotomy, it's an agreement, that there is no separateness between the awareness that we are using to view something and the awareness that is coming back to us. So the breath can be a great friend of ours. It can calm the body. We can use it to calm the mind. It can be very serene. It can be very complicated. It can be very boring. It can be very satisfying. All these different things, and that's why it's such a good meditation object. And then sometimes the breath seems to get so soft and so gentle that it's difficult to keep our attention on it. Because after all, we've been breathing all of our life and we haven't been noticing every breath. So we're somewhat conditioned to allow the attention to wander away from the breath or away from anything that we're focusing on. But we have to be okay with that. But we have to be serious enough about our practice to want to bring our attention, our focus back to our designated place. So again, we still the mind, relax the body. We look for these gaps in between the activity of the mind. And we learn to trust that place. We have to look beyond our conditioning, the conditioning that we've been doing all of our life. And that is to continually think our way through situations, and to constantly be doing, whether it's physical or mental. We find this peacefulness that resembles our true nature. Some people call it Buddha nature. And we understand that everything that we put out comes right back to us. So everything that we notice in the area of thoughts or sensations or whatever it might be that is seemingly out in the world, this comes right back and as a reflection of who we are. There's just a few minutes left in the meditation. Just pay special attention to where your awareness is. And where your thoughts are or are not. See if there's more spaciousness in the mind. It's a good idea after the meditation to kind of review what happened, mentally and maybe physically. Something that we should do at home too. Maybe more so at home, sometimes journal afterwards. Find out what we discovered, if anything. So we'll recite the Loving Kindness Sutra together on this piece of paper. I think everybody should have one. We just recite this together as a kind of a tradition. To attain the state of peace, one skilled in goodness should be able, upright, perfectly upright, gentle in speech, kind, and free from pride, contented, easily satisfied, with limited duties and unburdened livelihood, controlled in senses, discreet, reserved, and not blindly attached to groups. One should not commit the slightest wrong, that the wise might censor, wishing, may there be happiness and security, may all beings be happy. Whatever beings there are, whether feeble or strong, tall or short, large, medium, or small, microscopic or mammoth, leaving none, seen or unseen, living near or far away, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let one not deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither in anger nor in ill will should one wish another harm. Just as a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so, one should cultivate a limitless concern for all living beings. Extend loving kindness throughout the world without limitation, above, below, and across, free of obstruction, enmity, or hostility. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one should diligently sustain this mindfulness. This is called sublime living. Without holding narrow views, but being endowed with broad vision and avoiding attachment to sense desires, the virtuous are not born again into this world. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us, and may no difficulties come to us, and may we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience and the courage and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, as I was saying, after we're done with our meditation, it's always a good idea to take a few minutes, especially at home, to kind of review what our experience was, and sometimes keep a tablet, next to us. We don't want to get in the habit of disturbing our meditation, writing things down, but afterwards, write a few things down and see how we progressed, if we did, or what the situation might be that we experienced. Yeah. So some of you that are new here, we have about 25 minutes, I guess, tonight, where we can share or talk. We can ask questions. If you put something out there, I ask you to direct it to me, and then I can direct it back. Even if it's something that you want to share or a comment or something, direct it to me, then I can direct it back out there because of the people viewing, on the streaming, so that they can hear, through the microphone picks up just a little bit out there, but not much. And we can talk about meditation, of course. We can talk about Buddhism. We can talk about non-duality. We can talk about anything, really. Sushi, or I don't know, law of attraction, anything like that. If anybody has any questions, they're welcome to bring them up, or like I said, sharing. But yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Kaylee.
Hey, Kaylee.
I want to say thank you. I'm really happy I came.
You're
I
welcome.
just want to know, like, I've practiced meditation, but I feel like when I'm in this state of mind and I am practicing it, I feel like my struggle is I put too much pressure on myself. So I'm kind of like, I guess asking you, like, there's probably no right or wrong way, but I guess like soothing that mind and just kind of like surrendering, that's like where I'm at, like trying to do that. And it's like I can get it for like 10 minutes, but then I'm like, whoa. And then it's just like all gone. It's like a reset button. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
was beautiful, especially like being in a room with all this energy. It's really,
Yeah,
it's
totally. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So your question is, like, I heard you use the word trying a few times in there, like 3 times of trying this, and we, that's common. We do that, but you might be, putting too much expectation upon yourself, and it's like if we put too much expectation on ourselves for anything. That's another. I used the word preference earlier, and that's kind of a preference that we have. We want things to be a certain way, and that's actually just the opposite of what we want in meditation, because meditation is by design, it is supposed to be stilling and calming and just simply allow us to learn more about ourselves. So if you have that expectation, or you notice that you're trying, you want to notice that. And meditation is not really a time for self-psychotherapy, in that we're not trying to analyze what's going on, or why am I trying so hard? Why do I always do that? We don't want to do that during our meditation, but just simply notice it, be aware that that's happening. And usually it happens all the time, where that awareness is enough, for us to kind of ease up, and that easing up is probably, in your situation, the key. But I'm sure you're not alone. There's a lot of people here that do the same thing. So, I really appreciate you, bringing that up and talking about it. But meditation shouldn't be a struggle. I know sometimes it is, and there's been times where I just did not want to sit. I had my legs were for some reason really restless. And it was like you're sitting on pins and needles, so to speak. I mean, almost like it feels like literally almost, but. But yeah, we just want to notice that and be aware of it. That awareness is really king, in meditation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything from anybody else? Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this is not intended, I think, to be a time of psychoanalysis. I found my mind wanting to go back and reflecting on my life thus far, the 45 years.
It's going into the past. The mind is going into the past.
Yes.
You don't find yourself going into the future? Are you the future? So we have the future there. I saw your hand go up, but
Yeah.
because there's a difference, they.
I don't want to repeat the past.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to repeat some of my past.
Yeah, yeah,
I relate.
And I feel that I want to make sure that I've learned all that perhaps there is to learn as I move forward.
So you're going back into the past and kind of checking, making sure that everything's cleaned up, sort of, so to speak.
And with vigilance, yes.
Yeah. The first question I have to ask you: is there any anger in there for anything? I mean, you really have to look, but. Or ill will, maybe anger towards yourself, which is even subtler than being angry at that other person, that kind of thing.
I can see the latter as a potential. I don't see myself. I have not had tendencies towards having anger towards others. It's always been more inward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because whether when we're present in this present moment, the past doesn't exist. You know, it's just in the mind. And the same way with the future doesn't exist either. And it's all mind-made. And sometimes it's very, very apparent to us, but not very often. It feels like it's really a part of us, you know. And you know, I've said this many times, but if there's any kind of anger in our lives at ourselves, or ill will, you know, angry at ourselves or other people, it's found in the past and not in the future. And a lot of times the opponent, the other side of that coin is the future, you know, where we're apprehensive, you know, of the future, but mostly, you know, fear-based, you know, or we're fearful of something that might happen in the future. And so fear is not found in the past because we've experienced the past. Nothing to be afraid of, except for being fearful that thing might happen again, but that's still future-based. It gets a little confusing there. But, you know, to the aspect of crossing all of our T's and dotting all our I's and going, you know, did I cover everything did I do it all? You know, did I take care of it all? That's, you know, thinking about the past and making sure that the slate is clean or something like that. And you know, sometimes we want to be prepared by visiting the past. We feel like that can prepare us for the future or for the present, even for the present moment. And that is true from the aspect of if we learned our lessons, you know, that's where all of our lessons come from in the past. And that's what that's what it's for. I mean, you know, that's where our education comes from, basically, and everything that we are. But there's deep conditioning too, in the negative and the positive, you know, conditioning from the past, and that can you know, affect the present moment, you know, quite a bit. You know, that's our character, that's who we are, and it takes a great deal of wisdom to see and to visit the past in a very, very healthy way. Most of us don't realize that. We don't understand that to go into the past and to just kind of mingle in that and just kind of play in that. We have to have a eye of wisdom to notice and to pay attention to what we're doing in order to do it skillfully. But in meditation, we really don't want to do that at all. I mean, ideally we don't want to do it at all, but oftentimes we will slip in there, and then that's when we should be just real mindful or aware that that's happening, and exactly what is the mind landing on? You know, that's it. And if it keeps going back to the same thing again and again, then we really have to take a look at it, you know, because then we get into these habitual patterns of mind. And it can be in the future too. We can habitually think about our retirement or whatever it might be, you know, or, you know, worse things, things that get us in trouble. And there's no right or wrong in any of this, because it's up to each individual person and each individual, the thought patterns that we have. It's the habitual things that get us in trouble. So if you find yourself going back to the same thing again and again, really take a look at it and dissect it, but not in meditation. You know, maybe through contemplation, maybe something like that. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. I hope that touched on it a little bit.
Very much so.
Yeah, I've heard it said that we're not trying to stop our thoughts.
Right.
Because if that was the case, then a tranquilizer would be a path to enlightenment.
Bottle of vodka or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not trying to. If we can, the only way that can really flow through life is through acceptance and not trying to change anything beyond our intention. And we can actually use that term for our own benefit. Like, my intention is to do this. My intention is to do that. And on. But it's just an intention, but we're not settling on any hard facts as far as the result is. We are, the result is not the end of the the end of the search, or the end of the what am I trying to say? There's a profound way to lay that out, but the result is not the only thing that we're after. It's not a part of the path, it's the journey, really, and we all know that. We just have to keep that in mind. Yeah, I said earlier that meditation is like a reflection of our lives. And if we have difficulty in our meditation, and it could mean like, I had really a bad couple of weeks of meditation. Take a look at what's going on, in our life to see why that is. If we have one bad meditation, that could be an indication that there's just something, maybe we're drowsy or something like that. Maybe we didn't sleep well the night before, or maybe we had an argument with our partner or something, which threw us, kind of derailed us a little bit. But again, if we habitually have troubles with our meditation, it's a reflection of our life and what is going on, and which is a little bit difficult because we can't compare our meditation with somebody else's either, because they're all different. And everything from asking, am I doing this right? Is this the right way? Am I, if we ask that question constantly and wonder why, there's probably something else in our life that we're wondering if we're getting it right. Maybe this entire path. Maybe we're just wondering if we were doing it the right way. And that reflection is also it's bigger than that, actually. In our Saturday morning class, we're talking about karma quite a bit, because we're talking about some of the deeper or higher teachings in Buddhism, whichever you want to call it, deep or high, But we're talking about karma a lot, and again, that reflection has a lot to do with karma, like instant karma or just karma in general, because we as humans, not only as humans, as any being or anything really, has a certain amount of consciousness, or what we could call consciousness. And I called it awareness earlier. We can call it different names, but we put it out there. It's like we're conscious of this or conscious of that. And so let's say we're conscious of another human being. Let's say a human being cuts us off in traffic. Let's just visualize that. And we get upset about that human being cutting us off in traffic, and it's almost like we send this, we could look at it as negativity. But whatever that flavor of consciousness is, it goes out there, but it comes back at the same way. And that is actually the karma. And there's we don't see it happening, we don't necessarily feel it happening, but we can become more sensitive to it in meditation if we realize what's going on. So what we put out is like a reflection that comes right back to us. And it's apparent when we're working with people. I mean, it can be, not always, but it's like that with everything. That's why when we're out in nature, we don't say that dead tree shouldn't be laying there, or that there's a dandelion there. What's that doing there? We don't. Most of us anyway. We don't go into nature and try to correct it after like a native forest. It just is what it is. And so we don't put out that negative consciousness or negative awareness. So it doesn't come back at us. We are what we are because the forest is what it is. You know, if we can remember that while we're kind of flowing, trying to flow through life, you know, it can really change our world in many ways. And again, a lot of that's through acceptance, accepting this, and a great deal of letting go. You know, letting go of the things that trip us up, and you know, the things that we're hanging on to from the past, and anything that isn't serving us, just letting it go. That's another practice that we can do in meditation as well. Yeah, Tim?
Yeah, could you revisit for the subject of expectations a little bit? I'm not sure if I really understood what you were saying. You know, I'm like, one of the reasons I got into meditation was I had an expectation and intention, right? To
Yeah.
quiet my mind, to develop serenity, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And what I thought I heard you just say was it's not about intention.
It is about
It is
intention.
about intention.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't.
What's the difference between intention and expectation?
I don't know. I didn't use the word expectation,
No,
but
but
I think expectation, I mean, to me, it just has a little bit more anxiety in it, like we're waiting for something to happen,
Feels
you
like
know.
it's more result oriented.
Result orientated, yeah.
Expectation.
Yeah.
There's disappointment if it doesn't
Yeah,
come
if it
out the
doesn't
way
come
we'd
out
like
the
it
way
to
you
come
want, yeah.
out. That's
Disappointed if it
expectation.
doesn't come
Intention
out.
is before the fact that you're setting the
Right.
intention
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, like, yeah.
So is it more of an adventure?
Pardon me? More.
More of an adventure?
I think there's nothing wrong with saying that it's more of an adventure, yeah. But the intention is not to have a set, a set result, yeah. Because if we have the intention of making $100,000 this year and we don't do it and we're crushed, you know, that is a little bit more of an intention, you know, it's a goal orientated. The intention is just like putting it out there, and that's all we can do because we don't have as much control as we think we do. And if we want things a particular way, then we get hurt. But like in our meditation, we can have the intention to have a still, peaceful mind and body, and you know, clarity of mind, and you know, the things that we think meditation will do for us. That's what Deepak Chopra calls that a worthy goal, which is probably the same thing as an intention, you know, a worthy goal, something. I guess a worthy goal might be something that benefits ourselves and others, you know.
But that would be a long-term goal. That's not a goal for that session, right?
Yeah. Well, we can. Yeah, but as far as intentions, we can set an intention just for the few moments ahead, or you know, a longer plan too.
What I've done is I did when I first started several years ago struggle with feeling like I wasn't getting there. And after a while, I decided I don't need to achieve anything.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is to sit and, you know, focus on the breath and just be there.
That's your intention.
That's my intention.
Yeah, to sit there and.
But no expectation about
Yes.
how it's going to
Yeah.
turn out.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly. That's a good definition of what we're talking about. Yeah.
So even if you have a bad session, that you're not crushed and disappointed because, you know.
Yep.
That's okay.
Because there's.
Yeah, we all have had them many times.
Because there's grasping behind that, you know, not grasping behind intention. Intention is just putting it out there, and then anything beyond that, if there's grasping, we want things to be a certain way. Attachment, grasping, clinging, desire, you know, all these Buddhist terms for suffering, basically. John?
My experience, and I work a lot with people, is that, you know, a lot of times when we have expectations or goals, we sell ourselves short.
Yeah.
You know, because 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I never would have thought I had the life that I have today,
Yeah.
you know? And a lot of times, I think we limit ourselves, say, well, I got this goal, and we don't realize what our potential really is. You know, and then when I'm living over there, I'm not taking care of things here.
Yeah.
And when I'm ruminating about the past and reprocessing things that happened and, wishing they would have come out differently, I was wasting my time.
Yeah.
You know? See, and sometimes, like when I'm in therapy sessions, sometimes I tell people, this may be as good as our lives ever get right now. And I know when I used to rule the universe many years ago, people don't remember that, but that screwed everything up. I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you're talking about the past are really, really, really valid because, education, I know a lot of people who have advanced degrees and this and that, and they spend a lot of money on them, but all of us have gotten education in our lives that was very costly, I'm sure, either emotionally or financially. And so my belief is that education is expensive, however we get it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you call wisdom, of course, is the ultimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, education comes from the past, and that's all we have, really. I mean, time is a construct, but we go from here to here, and that's expensive, to go from here to here, and it's so we really do ourselves a service to get our lessons and not repeat them.
If we get cut off by a self-driving car, are we going to get angry at it?
That's a good question.
Then we judge the people who built it.
Yeah. Self-driving car, yeah.
The
Yeah.
question is, who do you flip off?
That's right.
Yeah, nobody
I
gets
have
flipped
one
off.
question.
Yeah.
Does meditation help with like habitual negative thoughts?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, because that negativity is probably based on something that happened in the past, and there's probably some anger involved with that. Would you say?
More than likely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get a chance to see where that comes from. Not that we're trying to dig into it and find it, but it shows up. It can show up. The key, for a lot of times these negative emotions and stuff, is to know what the triggers are. Because if we have a lot of negativity in mind, first of all, if we notice when we don't have that negativity, everything is fine, but then blank happens, whatever it might be. And I've said this many times, but meditation makes us sensitive to these things, and sensitive in a good way. We become sensitive to what triggers us, what fires us up, in the wrong way and brings up that negativity. And sometimes it's the most unexpected things. And sometimes it can be deeply, deeply buried, from way back, the things that come up in different surprising ways. And I had a teacher that was meditating, and what came up for him was the fact that it just came up. He said it came up out of the blue, like he realized that he had been sexually abused as a young boy, and he had no recollection, none whatsoever. And he saw it, and he accepted it, and he went back into his meditation. But he said it changed his life, by going back and visiting that. Not purposely, it just came up. It came out of his psyche, And that's one of the reasons why they call this insight meditation, is because we're allowing those gaps to let that stuff come through. And so it's meditation works for the conscious mind, and these are Freudian terms, but the conscious mind and the subconscious mind as well. Yes.
Do you think it's healthy during a meditation session with yourself to like kind of put words out to the universe or like a higher, like an energy force, like not out loud but like in your mind?
Yeah, well, you know, again, I don't think there's any right way or wrong way, but the meditation is really not a time for, you know, like manifesting or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with doing that, I mean, as such, but in meditation our time seems to be a little bit more, in a way, kind of more valuable and geared towards acceptance and letting go and not trying to change anything in such a way. So if we're putting something out there to, like a mantra or something like that, you know, there are different practices that do that, but not necessarily anything that I teach anyway. I mean, as far as Vipassana or concentration, it's in that area, meditation is like this, and having a great deal of acceptance, and acceptance in our life as well, not turning the other, you know, not blind acceptance or blind faith or anything like that, but to, you know, to have that practice for those 30 minutes or whatever it is, and allowing that to be a part of our life as far as, you know, that intention, that kind of thing that we're talking about.
So kind of like two separate practices. Like this is more
Mhm.
like I'm here, I'm present, like
Yeah.
feeling and being aware. Like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And yeah, and then there's, you know, the like contemplation practices. I do that all the time, where I open-eyed contemplation. I mean, and those kind of things we can do all the time, you know, but not necessarily in meditation.
Right.
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you for the question.
Could you talk
Yeah.
just a little bit about how the more you meditate, I don't know how to phrase this well, how the more you meditate, the better at it you get, the evolution of personal meditation?
Yeah, well, only from personal experience, really. But the first time I sat and meditated, I lasted about 2 minutes. I couldn't do it. I was horrible at it. And it got easier and easier because I knew it was a practice. And that, I think that is the key to understand that it is a practice, like learning anything else that we like music or art or, you know, language or something like that. So we just practice it, and we do it every day, and it gets easier and easier and easier. And then, again, the less expectation that we have and put on ourselves, the less preference we have for the meditation turning out a certain way, it helps the meditation in such a way that it gets easier. And actually, the more, I guess, kind of going out on a limb, but the more awake we get, the easier meditation gets, because we're just resting, we're abiding in this awareness, this blissfulness, and this emptiness in many ways. Most of all, I have to say that we trust it. We trust it that it's going to be working. And the way to check our meditation, whether it's working or not, I'm doing this because this is a barometer, you know. But the way we check it is just to see whether if we're happier or not. And I don't know, I think it's working for you, Tim, isn't it? You're pretty happy.
A little bit, no, I just, especially for some new people, it's one
Yeah,
of the things
yeah.
that